I think we're live, everybody. Okay. Family, let me turn off my cell phone because we want to make sure we have no interruptions for the next hour when we are doing a special edition, a sneak edition of New Church Hacks. Welcome. This is a special Leadership Academy episode of New Church Hacks webinar series. I am your sibling, Pastor Terrell L. McTire, and I serve as your Minister of New Church Strategies in the Christian Church Disciples of Christ New Church Ministry. And Leadership Academy is our training event for leaders of new and emerging congregations. And we wanted to bring you into this week that we've been having. It's been so tremendous and transformative. And we wanted to share this opportunity with you today on our Facebook Live. So we are recording, and the playback of this episode will be available to you at newchurchhacks.com. Be sure and jump over there and sign up for our next episode on October 28th. There you can find other episodes of this digital series, which provides you practical and sometimes peculiar prompts for churches from start to restart. Today, we will be discussing 12 hacks to transform your collective's technology. COVID-19 has thrusted churches on their heels, left to grab whatever technology might keep them from stumbling into non-existence completely. And all of a sudden, features such as on-website live streaming, digital giving, church apps, and church management systems have become not just a luxury, but an item for tech-forward churches. But safeguards for every church as well are necessary. And if COVID-19 is the iceberg, church tech contains the lifeboat. So during this time together today, which I am calling TechSoup, we will hear different perspectives of how they may see or use technology to not only transition, but transform ministry during the pandemic. Stay until the very end when I will give you 7 totally off topic but invaluable new church hacks. And later you will have the opportunity yourself to ask some of our topic leaders questions. So if you think of anything, go ahead and use the chat feature so that we will be able to get to those questions later up. If we don't get to you, then we will try to follow up a little bit later. All right, to begin, I want to tell you a little bit about our conversationalists today. First, we have LaShondra McCarty, who is the owner of 3C Creative Communication and Consulting, where she specializes in social media marketing training, leadership development, and vision planning. We have Pastor Lauren Richmond, who is a pastor and entrepreneur and a disruptor passionate about helping churches adapt to meet the needs of a changing world. And Katie E. Valentine, who is a coach at katievalentine.com and founder of the Creative Christian Spirituality LLC. You want to get with her as well. You will have an opportunity again to inquire of our presenters later towards the end. And if you have any pressing questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat right now. And this is interactive. So if you have some technologies that you'd like to share, please jump that in there too. All right, first, let's get into our first panelist. We want to bring on Sister LaShondra. She's going to start us off with her first set of new church hacks about technology.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. It has been a while since I've got a chance to sit with you and go over church hacks. I'm so hyped about it. It's always a joy to be with you.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, COVID-19 has really rocked us, right? And if you are stuck in being traditional, you are getting run over right now. So I'm glad that all of you are in this space to learn how you can actually shift so that you can continue to connect with your people, even if you cannot be in community physically. So my first hack is to up-level your community space. So we have to engage online. That is just how it has to be done right now. But don't forget to take advantage of technology. So if you are doing a live stream or if you're doing Zoom, don't just have it be a space where you're sharing outwardly, but also allow your people to engage with you so that you're creating community for them. And when you have spaces like this, go ahead and set them up so that they can have breakout rooms. Or if you're just using Facebook, give your ministries a different group where they can actually engage with one another and create a sense of community that they won't just get if they're only listening to a video of a sermon. Hack number 2 is to repurpose and incorporate. So you are creating media where there is videos, or if you're writing articles, doing scripts of your sermons that you're sharing with your people, or even deciding that you're going to take your Bible study into this new space, don't kill yourself by recreating all this content over and over and over again. Repurpose it. So if you do a video, go ahead and chop it up. Take some of the things that you say out of there and put it on your Twitter feed or put it on Facebook. Incorporate it into your newsletter. It's the same video. Or put it on YouTube. You don't have to make a separate video or do a separate article for each and everything. Just dissect it and make it appropriate for whatever channel you're using it in. Number 3, I have seen this, so I implore you, please do not do this. Your newsletter should not be 17 scrolls long. Okay, I know that sounds like an exaggeration, but real talk, most people are going to be engaging your newsletter on their phones. So even if you're sitting there and designing it with your big computer screen, and you're like, oh, I have all this space. You really don't, because it's not the amount of space that you have to create in, it's the amount of time people are willing to stay engaged. And if they have to continue to scroll, you are going to miss them. So when you start to do that newsletter, think about how many times they're going to pick that phone up and do this. Because once you go over 2 or 3 scrolls, you're done. So pare it down and just say what's super relevant, and make sure you put your most important information at the very top. Third thing, my fourth thing is data. Data. It matters. Right now, you may be feeling like, oh, I'm just going to do everything. You're just going to throw out the kitchen sink and just put it all out there. But are you being successful? Because if people are not engaging, then you may be putting your efforts in the wrong spaces. So really analyze whether or not what you're doing is working. And the way you can do that is, are people ingesting it? Like, are they engaging with you? Are they asking questions? Are they actually paying attention to the work that you're doing? Because if you are operating at an audience of 1, then something in your plan is ineffective. So those are my 4. Back to you. Or any questions? I'm not sure how you want to do it.
Yeah, no, we're going to go ahead and let the next set of hacks come on. Pastor Lauren, what are your hacks?
Yeah, thanks for letting me be a part of this. Lashandra's point about the newsletter is just a great point. I want to reemphasize that. I try to do 3 at a max 4 things, because the TLDR, too long didn't read, is a real thing. And if anything, just that's what I'd reemphasize that. That's a great point. My points are a little different but similar. One is, like, in this time, we've all, like, we wanted to invest, many of us, in more technology. And one of the things that I've experienced, and I just want to emphasize, is the more technology you add, it just increases the level of complexity. And I think a lot of times we think of technology as solving problems. And what I've experienced, and I think this is often the case, is adding technology really creates more problems. So you just got to be ready and be aware of, like, adding another piece of equipment or software or process really adds more complexity, adds more workload, adds more things that can go wrong. So just be aware of that. Technology can solve a lot of problems, but it can also create more problems. So just make sure you have the margin to deal with those additional problems. 2 other points I want to make. When it comes to your broadcast, whether you're doing an online streaming or something for, online church, invest in good sound. One of the things I discovered early on in my production here at my church in Thornton, Colorado, is sound really makes a huge difference. So I'm paying a sound technician every week to come in and mix sound, just so that I can have a good sounding production that goes out over the internet. Because again, in person, we're much more likely to put up with, little deviances in the sound. But online, again, like Lashandra's saying, when folks are engaging on their mobile phone, it's so easy just to scroll on by. If the sound is bad, or it's hard to hear, or there's pops and sparks and all that. So invest in good sound as much as you can. Kind of related to that is also, this is something I did early on, is I bought like 3 different cameras and ended up taking 2 of them back, because I realized that good lighting will beat good cameras. So, and make sure you have good lighting. That's an easy thing that we can all do to increase how we appear on screen. Again, we can spend hundreds and thousands of dollars on good cameras, but if the lighting is not good, how we're lit is not good, we're not gonna look good on the screen. So invest in good lighting over good cameras. The camera you see me on right now is actually a $250 Canon camera, and it's the same camera we use for our Sunday morning broadcasts. So the cameras are pretty low level, basic cameras, and I have expensive lighting, not right now, but shooting out on me, lighting us up for our Sunday morning broadcast. The last thing I'd say is just beware of subscriptions. I know early on, and I don't know about you, but early on for me, there's so many like subscriptions you could do to kind of help solve technological problems for you, like for streaming onto your multiple social media platforms, or mixing, or all these different things. But those software subscriptions, they add up. And I remember like a few months ago, I was kind of doing the math. I'm like, wow, I'm paying a ton of money in subscription fees. And certainly, in the crush of switching to online, like they solve the problem of getting something immediately. But a lot of the things you can do, there's software that's free, or different ways you can trick or play with things to get lower costs. So just beware of subscription fees, because they can really eat you alive. And pretty much everything these days is subscription fee based, and those things add up. So just be aware of that. Look for free opportunities or free software that you can do that to solve those problems rather than paying for it.
All right. Thank you so much, Pastor Lauren. Those are great hacks. Katie, take it away.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. So my blanket statement that applies to all four of my hacks are: your technology, your social media, everything you do is a ministry, not an add-on. And if we can see it as a ministry, that's going to increase its seriousness for you and what you offer. So my hack number one: you have two audiences always. One audience are people who have never, ever been to your community, even more true during COVID, when the only place they see you is online. So new people, community members, people who have never visited you. And then your second audience is your church members and your community. Which one should get your priority? Most likely people who have never visited your church, because your community members are invested already. They know you. They already love the church. They're volunteering their time. So you do want to have some messages to them, but I think for most of you, most messages will be to people who don't know who you are, because everyone's had toxic church experiences. So it's up to you to show them who you are. Number two, decide what your social media channels are for. Hint: your Facebook page, your public page, is for the community. It's for outside members. They're the ones who are looking at that. Facebook groups are for your community members. They're for people who already know each other. They're invested in their community, and that can be a lot more casual. You can use your insider language there. Decide if you have Instagram. Decide: is this for your branding of your church? Is this for your community members? Is it a hybrid? So post intentionally and speak to those audiences. Same with Twitter, same with TikTok, same with absolutely any social media that you use. Your newsletter, though, like your very short newsletter, is probably for your community members. You can use some insider language, but don't ever assume they actually know what you're talking about. You probably have to re-explain it in a nice, short, concise way. Number three, this is, I think, my most important one: show, don't tell. Show, don't tell. Telling people how amazing your church is actually can build distrust. It can make people not trust you because it feels like you're overselling yourself. But if you show people what you're doing, that actually builds a lot of trust. So if we're thinking specifically to the community who doesn't really know who you are, tell me which one sounds more effective. Come to worship at 10 a.m. and find out about the parable of the Good Samaritan, right? You're giving them the info, right? You give them the Zoom link, whatever it is. Or, here at Good News Church, we love to show the radical love of Christ by showing up for our Muslim neighbors when they're experiencing harassment. It's not easy, but we think it's the Jesus thing to do, even if we do it imperfectly. We're going to be sharing more about this in our service on Sunday on Zoom. And so in that way, you're not actually telling people to come to your service, because that could be presumptuous, but you're showing them what you do and inviting them to experience this with you. And then hack number 4, write all of your social media posts and cultivate your community through your social media at one time and pre-schedule them. So for instance, I'm wrapping up a class right now that I'm hosting. Shonda Jaw is teaching on Rise Up for Racial Justice. And I pre-scheduled all of our Facebook group posts that said, remember, we're meeting in 15 minutes. Here's the Zoom link. Hey, are you having any trouble logging on? Created some memes. Those are all pre-scheduled 6 weeks out and ready to go. And I don't have to think about it. I don't have to think every Wednesday night, wait, did I remind people to do the Zoom? Did I remind people this? They have emails that are pre-scheduled. So anything that you know, like an event or a program you're having, you can pre-schedule all of that, and it reduces your decision fatigue, and you just know it's taken care of. That way, you are running your social media, it's not running you. Because this is an increased level of complexity, like Lauren said. So that's my 4th hack.
All right, thank you so much, each of you, for that set of hacks. And we have a few questions that are coming in on the because as we told you a moment ago, we are here in Leadership Academy having it virtual for the first time. And so we are all here in the Zoom platform. And so we have some questions that are coming on from Zoom, as well as there's been lots of comments on Facebook Live as well. So where's Pastor Jose? Do you have any questions for us that are coming from the chat feature?
Yeah, there's actually 2 that kind of related to Lauren's hack about lighting. One of the questions is, what light do you recommend? And then the other one, is it okay to use O-ring for broadcasting?
I mean, I think I'm hardly a lighting expert, I'll just say, just to be fair. I've kind of like Facebook market placed it, if that makes sense. Like early on, I just kind of like looked at, saw like lights for sale for cheap. And, because back in April, May, I think I found like some guy who ran a production company who was obviously like hemorrhaging money because everything was shut down. And he was selling some really nice, I don't even remember what they're called, some really nice LED like stage lights. And I got them like half what they would be brand new, I think. But I also bought some like just really basic, like some kind of studio lights. Just again, lighting matters, and it doesn't have to be necessarily expensive lighting, just as long as you're well lit. That's been my experience anyway.
Okay, excellent. And this other question's towards Katie. Are there apps that you utilize to kind of like put out the social media post at the same time, like Hootsuite or something to that nature?
Yes, there's a ton out there. The one I use right now is Buffer, and you can have up to 3 accounts for free. So for no charge. I think it's even the charge, if you want up to 9 accounts, I believe it's like $12.99 a month. So it is a subscription, and they can add up, like Lauren was saying. But for most churches, 3 accounts will be about what you need, and where you can automate.
Sorry to interrupt, but I think Hootsuite you can do 3 accounts for free.
I found Hootsuite just personally hard to use, so it just depends on how your brain thinks.
Yeah.
So just explore them, see what format works for you. But on Facebook itself, you can pre-schedule everything on a Facebook page, within a Facebook group. You don't have to have special software. All of those allow you to pre-schedule. And so
Right.
little tips.
I think that's interesting that you're even talking about the different platforms or broadcasting on several different social media platforms at once. But a lot of times, is it necessary to be on all the platforms? Like if I was a church and I wanted to broadcast live on YouTube or on IG or on Facebook, or even just streaming live from my website, which one should I choose? How do I make the decision about which platform to stream from?
Sorry, go ahead, LaShondra.
I think it depends on where your audience is. So if your strongest audience is on Facebook, then do it from Facebook. But like I was saying earlier, if you do like Facebook and YouTube, you might end up hitting different people just because of the technology works differently. So if somebody's on YouTube, they may be recommended to see your particular live. Or if you just say, well, I'm just going to stream to one place, I don't want to pay for a platform that's going to have me streaming to both, you can just download that video from either platform and upload it to the other one. So you can still hit that audience even if you didn't want to pay for a subscription or try to deal with the technology of how to actually get it to facilitate in that way. But I would really, if somebody was worried about all these different platforms, you can't be everywhere because you're going to end up not doing everywhere well. And all those platforms hit a different target audience. So I would say they need to really focus on how they want to engage or how they want people to engage them. So like, what kind of community are you trying to create online? And where are your people? Because there's no point in doing all this work if on Twitter and trying to stream in that space and you have nobody there.
So Lashandra, that kind of brings me to another question. So my son constantly says, Facebook's for old people, sort of thing. And, if we want to try to break into a new target audience or a new group of people demographically, is there a suggestion that you would use to, like, whenever, like, let's say you want to go into TikTok or Snapchat or some things along those lines? Do you have any recommendation for that?
It's formatted totally differently.
Right.
If you've ever really looked at TikTok or Snaps, either, they're very, very short. So the long form of being able to have, an hour or even 10 minutes is going to be off the table. So you're going to have to engage that medium very differently. There's a lot of entertainment there. So you're going to have to up the funny. I mean, if you really want to engage them, like, put the book down and like present it, but present it in a very funny way, whether it's really short skits, really upping it up on the graphics, but you would just have to engage them in a different way because the things that they're watching on TikTok are short and pithy.
Yeah,
Well,
I think that's a good thing to think about. So like, broadcast your bloopers. If you're sitting there practicing your sermons or practicing something that's happening, put those out there. People want to see that you're real and that you're not just coming with your representative all the time, that this is a real place with real people. And, if you have a sermon that's 20 minutes, then you practically have about 20 different pieces of content in that sermon. Figure out ways to slice it up and then broadcast varying different aspects of that at different times. Do some A/B testing, which you have to figure out when your audience is on and when they are ingesting your content at the right time. Facebook has analytics built into it. So they show you when is your audience actually on, which one of the videos got the most attention. And so if you do something well, it could be an anomaly. It could be something that just happened and worked out that one time, but more than likely not. And you want to just like try to redo or multiply those efforts.
Lashandra, we had another question that was directly to what you were saying. It was about the newsletters. Do you suggest it for monthly versus weekly? Can you speak a little bit more on that, on frequency?
Okay. That would depend on a couple of things. What you're sending out and what your people want. So your industry is going to, which is everybody in here is mostly church or ministry, but even that is different. So like if I were doing a ministry that, say, was a mobile food truck, and within my newsletter, I was also giving updates of where we were going to be the next time, I would probably send that out more frequently in coordination with how often we would actually take the truck out. If my ministry was very heavy in media and there was like podcasting and, other avenues for people to connect, I would probably send that out once a week and say, hey, this is the upcoming show. So a part of that question is really going to be contingent upon what are you sharing in that newsletter. If you're not having a lot of dynamic content like that, then you could probably bump down to once a month if you're doing something that's more traditional, like, this is our sermon series that's coming up, and here are the birthdays for the month. But like Terrell was saying, when it comes to testing, and full disclosure, I am a partner for Constant Contact. So that's the format that I use. But in Constant Contact, you can do A/B testing, where you can have a list that you send out, and you could say, I want to send this out every month, and then you could have another group where you see say that you want to send it out every week. And because they're on the same list, most likely your church members, then you'll be able to see how often each half is actually participating and whether or not you're losing people. But I would say to test it out either way and let them know that you're running a test so that you don't want them to over-engage or under-engage on what they would naturally do. But if you decide that you're going to send it out more frequently, and there are other people who are saying, well, I didn't get it this week, if you let them know, hey, this is what we're actually doing, we're trying to see how often you actually want to receive it. Another thing that people miss out on is really engaging their audience, because you can always ask them, how often do you want to hear from us? Because if they say, well, you can send it out every week, but I'm only opening it once a month, then they've kind of told you that they're not going to engage it. So you have a couple of things there. A/B test it, and then just ask. And another thing that I would say that would help with people's engagement on your newsletter is to have multiple contributors. So give your church members have a wealth of knowledge that just because they don't stand in the front, and sometimes people don't know that, even if you don't stand in the front and you're not the one disseminating, doesn't mean that you don't have anything to offer. So give them the opportunity, whether it's to write or do a little video or a prayer, or, share how they're dealing with the pandemic, or any ideas that they may be having for, how to work with your kids at home, because they may have something that's working for them that may work for somebody else, or may trigger an idea. It'll also help take some of the burden off of you from trying to create all of the content, right? Instead of you thinking, oh man, I have to fill up this newsletter, you may be down to writing one or two things, and there'll be several other people who can contribute. And that will also increase engagement, because they're going to, of course, read it because they want to see what they put in. And other people that know them will start engaging it because their friend is having the opportunity to have their voice heard.
And may I jump in as well?
Yeah, go for it, Katie.
I love everything that LaShondra just said. And when we talk about like automating emails, some of your emails that you send out about, hey, reminder, our Zoom call starts in 20 minutes, means you don't have to necessarily put all of that in the newsletter. And so, yeah. And so remember, like if you put, hey, our Zoom worship link on a Monday morning, our Zoom worship link for Sunday in a newsletter on Monday, no one's going to be able to find that. They have to have a follow-up. So don't put it in the newsletter on Monday, just send it in the follow-up. And you can just say in the newsletter, we're going to send you the Zoom link 15 minutes before the worship service begins.
One thing real quick I want to add here is email is still a technology. Your smartphone is still a technology. There's technologies we've been using all along. Technology is not localized to social media. It's just one of the newest technologies that we use. So when you are considering engaging your audience and communicating with your collective members or participants, consider the communication channel that works best for them. And for some people, they are not going to be on Facebook. They don't even want to be on Facebook. So you have to figure out how to do this. We have always had multiple audiences with church. There's always been people who were not able, we call them sick and shut in, or they may be at a distance to not actually show up and physically be participating in your service. This is not new. And so just the same way you always made provisions for them by either showing up at the hospital or taking them communion at their homes or doing other things like that in the pandemic, or we must continue to do these things and also and figure out how we continue to participate with every single audience that is available. For instance, please don't show up at my home because I don't answer the phone. I don't answer the door, so you're not gonna get me. That's not the best way to give a message to me. But if you text me, I'm going to respond. If you DM me, if you direct message me, that little Facebook face of yours is going to pop up and I'm going to respond to it. There's certain ways that just work better with different people. So know your audience, know what communication channel works best for them. And I see, Jose, we have a question about text messaging.
Yeah, actually, yeah, you brought that up. And so of any of our panelists, do you have like suggestions about utilizing text messaging for the newsletter?
Jose, I use something called Pastor's Line, and it's very affordable. I think I pay $25 a month. I
Okay.
will say I don't engage with it as much as it is and as much as I should. And again, this is kind of the, I think goes back to what LaShondra said about like, you know, if, at some point, like you have all these different options and you kind of got to narrow it down to what you can manage. But Pastor's Line is one I recommend. It's very affordable. It's a bit complex. It's not as user friendly as I'd like it to, but it's much cheaper than other options out there.
I think Google Voice might also work as a free option because you can text online. I haven't tried it for mass texting.
Yeah, Pastor's Line will do mass texting. That's why I mention it. So you can shoot out like, hey, you know, jump online for our service in 10 minutes kind of thing.
Wow, just a whole lot of stuff to kind of take in. And when I think about email, you know, again, you know, there's different companies, you know, Lysandra, you mentioned Constant Contact, you know, there's MailChimp, there's other entities out there. So like when a person's choosing a service, a subscription service, what are some of the things that you would want them to think about as they're looking at that?
How they intend to use it, whether or not they will ever think they need help. One of my preferences for Constant Contact, and before becoming a partner, I actually just used it. And I prefer it over MailChimp because if there's an issue, there's somebody that you can call. And that just makes a difference for me. Accessibility, because if I'm having any issues with your product or something's happening and I can't get anybody, then if I'm using it to communicate, you could leave me dead in the water. Another thing that I like about it is the ability to integrate social media. So you can actually post from the platform onto your social media pages. You can do scheduling of it so that you can determine when it actually goes out on the social media posts as well as on the email distribution as well. And it will automatically resend, if you tell it to, it will automatically resend to the people who hadn't opened, just as a little, hey, did you forget that it's over here? And there are other things that it can do, like if you have registration for something, you can actually integrate that into the platform as opposed to having a separate registration page and then trying to figure out how to link them up and get that data from that. So I think it's a matter of what do you need as a user? And if you feel, and I'm a very visual person, so I need to be able to click and drag and it to be like very, very simple for me. And I don't want to have to deal with code. And so if you have, computer language is what code is. So if I don't want to deal with code, I'm going to go for the more visual thing. So I think that before people decide to really make a commitment to a platform, if it has a trial, go ahead and go through the trial. Give yourself a chance to look at the interface and play with it some before you make a full commitment and before you actually launch publicly. Because sometimes you end up launching something and feel like you're stuck with whatever that thing is. But most of them will give you a 7-day or 30-day opportunity to really play with it. And send the messages out amongst your team and see whether or not it actually works for you. And if it's something that you can easily pick up. If it's going to just make you frustrated, then just be on a normal learning stage. Then try something else before actually committing and integrating that into your communication plan.
And just remember, we're nonprofit. A lot of organizations and companies will actually give a discount to nonprofits. So don't be ashamed to say, hey, do you have a discounted service for nonprofits? Because there are quite a few that do. I'll just share this, that my children right now are doing virtual learning. And I saw that in their virtual learning, now they have 2 principals, that the whole district are pulling together teachers and a principal for all the students that are doing virtual. And then they have the principals that are in the actual buildings for those who are doing hybrid learning. And so there was a time in church where the number 2 position was either the music pastor or the children's leader. And so now we are doing things a little different, and all the pastors do not, like, as a leader in the church, that does not mean you have to overnight become a technology guru. Find somebody in your congregation who has already been doing technology and empower them to do this for your collective. And there's two terms that I want to bring to light and give you all an opportunity as we're wrapping up Q&A to explain a little bit. They may be the same for you. That is electronic evangelism or digital discipleship. And I want to give each of you a chance, if you had to define what either electronic evangelism is or digital discipleship, what are those terms meaning, and how should we as churches be using these nuances? Katie, I'm gonna call on you first.
I was scribbling down some thoughts. I love digital discipleship. That's resonates with me a lot. For me, everything I've done during COVID, and I like when COVID first hit, I kind of called together like, pastors, do you need help? Like, I'll teach you how to use Zoom. Taught them how to use Zoom if they were using that for the first time. But your digital ministry, in my experience, should also be a natural outgrowth of your physical in presence, not on a screen ministry. So the two should flow together very seamlessly. Your messaging should be very compatible. So it shouldn't, in my opinion, it shouldn't be like you have your online church and then your physical church. You have a church with two different expressions within themselves. And so how you do it digitally is a little bit different. And I think that's critical. My hope is that post-COVID, you continue to do them. Because now your people who are homebound, your people who can't get to church, people with social anxiety have a way to connect with you. You're able to share your gospel message in this really unique, dynamic way, and your leaders on the forefront in doing this. And so I personally am frustrated with, not frustrated with, because it's a little true with the, like, so many churches are going to close. I'm like, but how many churches are opening? How many new churches are we having? How many new people are we reaching? How is the church looking different? How are we accessible in ways that we never have been before? Because now we have to. So thank you, COVID, for helping us do things in a new way. And of course, I want COVID to be over just like everyone else. But this is also this opportunity for us to continuously reinvent through digital discipleship.
All right, Pastor Lauren, how would you define and how would you use electronic evangelism and digital discipleship?
Yeah, I want to reemphasize kind of what Katie said earlier about, like, think about who you're targeting. I've seen some churches who just do a Zoom and they only send a link out to the people in the church and they don't share it on Facebook. Like, in my mind, it's like you're not even trying to reach new people. And I think I'm of the opinion, at least, that like we should be trying to reach new people. And I appreciate Katie for emphasizing that. So I think like we have a great opportunity to reach new people, and like, I understand privacy and all, but like this is a good opportunity to share what we're doing with more people. And I want to emphasize like what Katie said, like take the opportunity to share what we're doing with more people. So for evangelism, that's what I say. As far as discipleship, I know one of the things I had to think through with my team is like, what does it mean? Like, what does discipleship look like in a primarily online space? So many evangelical churches will have like a discipleship path they kind of walk. They want people to kind of take this path, these kind of steps. So I do something similar here in my church, and I had to like rework those with my team. So like the first thing is obviously just to watch. We want people just to watch. Second thing is we want people like to comment, to engage or interact. And then if we can get them to do those things, we're gonna invite them to join like an online group. We're gonna ask them to serve in some capacity, and that's kind of a sense of like what the path is, discipleship path. So you've got to kind of reimagine what that looks like in this new online form. It's hard. I'll be honest, it's hard to think about like how can we engage people in this online format.
Yeah, I love that. Lashandra, what would you say about these two new terms?
Okay, I like them for one, probably because of the alliteration, but on the electronic evangelism, to echo Lauren, we are in a prime season if we just take advantage of it. There's so many more people who are tuning in. There are people who are engaging church that would have normally never gotten up and gone into a building on a Sunday morning. And if you are online, then they can find you. So it is a grand opportunity. And yes, as Katie said, don't give this up afterward, because some of these people may not even be in your state, let alone your region, to be able to actually get to you physically on a Sunday morning. So you are tapping people that you normally wouldn't be able to touch, which is the evangelism portion. So find your space, and allow yourself to make mistakes along the way, because the more you do it, the better you'll get, the more comfortable you'll get. And it's not going to look exactly like a church service in a building, and that's okay. And I think during this time that people have extended a lot of grace in knowing that the things that they see are not going to be a mirror of what happens on Sunday morning. But also remember that there are people who don't even know what your Sunday morning looks like, who are seeing you for the very first time. So you have an opportunity to reach them without them having preconceived notions of what it's supposed to look like. In regards to the digital discipleship, that's kind of what I was trying to hit on when I was talking about creating community in this space, so that it's not just the person receiving from you, but also them being given the opportunity to have conversation with each other as well as with you. So it will be a little more formulaic, even if it looked like setting up a particular children's group, because they can't see each other right now. So having the person who normally teaches them, or somebody that they could partner with, saying, okay, we're going to have our kids together in this group and we're going to lead some sessions with them and allow them to sing or whatever. So this is an opportunity to re-engage people and to give them the opportunity to enter into a new space with you, even if it's through discipleship and everybody just ordering the same book off Amazon and going through a book together.
Hey, I appreciate those answers. Remember, when we're thinking about evangelism, evangelism is proclaiming the good news, and discipleship is, in the same regards, making followers and students of Jesus. So if the scripture says, he that has an ear, let them hear what the Spirit says. And I want to rephrase that now for today and say, he that has a Facebook page, she that has an Instagram page, they that have a Snapchat, let them hear what the Spirit says. And you are that vehicle for the Spirit. In order to do evangelism or to do discipleship, there's something scary that you're going to have to do, and that is accept the friend requests of people who you do not know. We have to be able to do that, just like you have to go outside your church and engage community people who you don't know. This is the requirement of us as disciples. To go out and make disciples mean you have to engage people who are not like you, who do not have the same groups as you, who may talk differently than you, who may post things that you may not agree. For the sake of the gospel, Paul said, I am becoming all things so that I might do this. And that means in a digital space as well. So thank you all the panelists for your contributions. Thank you for helping us go to the next level when it comes to technology. We are almost at the end of today's episode of New Church Hacks webinar. Thank you all for joining us, and please consider the many ways in which you or your congregation might get involved with New Church movement in the Disciples of Christ or in your region, or partner with a Disciples Church in your community. And if you know a church planter or someone who is interested in planting and starting a collective, please send them my way. I would love to welcome them into the Christian Church Disciples of Christ family. For more information about the next New Church Hacks episode or a playback of this episode, go to newchurchhacks.com. To connect with New Church Ministry, go to newchurchministry.com. .org. I think we might own both. That's another tech hack, like buy domains. Every idea of buy domains, and buy the org, buy the net, buy the .com, buy them all. All right, Lashandra, Lauren, Katie, how can we all get a hold of you?
So I am on Instagram and on Facebook at Lashandra McCarty. I have a couple other pages, but if you hit me there, you'll get all the information.
Yeah, you can find out more about me at mgthornton.org or a podcast. Speaking of, I forgot to mention, like digital technology for people who have ears to hear. I'm going to drop, I have two that my church is doing, futurechristian.com or Future Christian Podcast, and Book Nook with Pastor Shay, which is meant to be kids discipleship programs, but futurechristian.com or mgthornton.org.
Awesome. You can find me. I'm Revdr Katie, like everywhere. So you can find me on Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram. Yeah, it'll throw out one of my podcasts. I'm a co-host for Heretic Happy Hour. It's very salty. You have to be okay with 4-letter words being thrown around. But we talk about what it means to lose your faith and then to gain it again. And our very own disciples, Rita Nakashima Brock, is our latest guest. And so that might be fun for some of you to listen to.
All right, thank you all. And some of our people here in Zoom at Leadership Academy are asking you to put those contact information links into the chat. So please do that for them. We would love to be able to maybe consult with any of you. You all have side hustles. Remember, we are in a gig economy way of life. We got to have multiple ways of doing things. And so for you also, please follow New Church Ministry on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Or if you have any questions for us, you can email me at terrell@newchurchministry.org or text me. That's the best way to get me at 317-593-5323. Now, here are your 7 totally off-topic New Church hacks for being more effective in making disciples who reach our community. Number 1, do less gathering, do more scattering. Number 2, stop saying everyone come and start saying, hey, let's go. Number 3, empower people, release people to be witnesses in their everyday lives. Number 4, equip your small groups to have a broader functionality, even to the point of functioning almost like little congregations. Number 5, distribute ownership and responsibility to have a greater impact in the community. Number 6, change your members from consumers to participants, where they'll provoke one another to love and good deeds, the way it says in Hebrew 10:24. And number 7, help people to live as agents of God's mission. Join New Church Ministry in our vision to make 1 million new disciples in a decade. And to explore how your collective can contribute, email us at info@newchurchministry.org. Thank you again for being with us today. We'll see you on October 28th for the latest episode of the New Church Hacks, where we will be talking about building a strong financial foundation with Belinda King and Bruce Barkhauer. Thank you all. We love you, beloved. Have a blessed day.